there are a million other secondary things, good things, but a million things that threaten the main thing. And many of them are good things. Secondary, but good, right? Good things like family or life groups or music or preaching or missions or youth group or food pantry or biblical counseling or children's ministry or outreach or, lots of good things that threaten to replace the main thing in the life of a church. Churches are always being tempted to put something other than the gospel in that one spot. But none of those are the main thing. And none of them can be. None of them can be, none of them are able to give shape and direction and significance to everything that we do as a church, right? None of them are able to empower everything that we do. And so therefore, none of these good but secondary things should stand at the center. They're good, but they're not the main thing. And when we put something secondary in place of what's primary, we actually end up distracting ourselves from the mission and fueling a kind of division and disenchantment within our church. So we'll take an example, do a little thought experiment here for a moment. What would happen if we were to put family at the center of our community and our mission? We were going to decide as a church, we're going to make family the main thing. So Stonebridge will be a safe place for families. We want all of our ministries to help equip families and provide a platform for families to serve together. Sure, we'll do other things, but the ones we're really excited about, that's going to be family. Strong marriages, well-behaved kids, that's what we're about. So that 30 years from now, if people come back and say, you know what, Stonebridge, they really knew how to do families, we would be tickled pink. So imagine for a moment we put family at the center of our church. Now, are families a good thing? Yes. The correct answer is yes. Families are good. Should we invest in families as a church? Yes. Yes, we should. Are families the main thing? No. If we make family the one main thing, what about single people? What about the woman who has longed for decades to finally find a man to get married to, and God just hasn't opened that door for some reason? What about the childless? What about those who at one point had a family, but cancer or car accidents or something has robbed them of one of their members? What about the husband and wife who've longed to hold a child of their own in their arms, and for whatever reason, God's just not answered that prayer? What about families fractured by adultery or divorce? What about blended families? What about those who struggle with same-sex attraction? Is there any place in a family-centered church for someone who wrestles with that? Do they just become second-class citizens all of a sudden? What about children whose parents aren't interested in church? Do they have a place if mom and dad don't come with them? What about marriages divided over the things of faith? One spouse isn't a believer. Or children who wander from the faith. Does that mean their parents didn't get it? Despite hours of prayer and discipleship and everything, at the end of the day, they didn't know what they were doing? What about the woman who had an abortion and can't bring herself to tell anybody that? Or the men who coerced and paid for one? What about the teenager who gets pregnant? Is there any room for her in a family-centered church? Families are a good thing, but they cannot be the main thing. They can't. Rather, what's the one thing that's able to speak into every family situation, broken or unbroken? The one thing that's able to minister to the heart of the childless, to the widow, the orphan, and the family that is bursting at the seams. only the gospel of Jesus. That's it. The gospel is just as much for the pregnant teenager as it is for the happily wed couple. And this is true for every good but secondary thing. And we could have done that thought experiment with any other ministry or any other thing that we tend to get excited about, and for good reasons, right? We could have said, we're going to be a music-centered church or a youth group-centered church or a counseling-centered church or whatever. You can put any secondary thing in there, and at some point, the church will fall apart because it's not able to bear the weight of being the one main thing. It just can't bring us together. There's only one thing that can unite our hearts and unify our passions and cleanse our sin and comfort the hurting and restore broken relationships and give hope to the hopeless and give direction and significance and movement to everything that we do as a church. There's only one thing that can do that, and it's only the gospel of Jesus. That is the one main thing, that which is best, which is most excellent. That's the road. As Tim Keller's written, because the gospel is endlessly rich, it can handle being the one main thing of a church. It can handle it. It's the only thing that can handle it. Everything else will be crushed under the weight and wind up scattering and dividing us. The gospel's the road. It is our central navigation point for everything we are, everything we do as a church, all of life and relationships and ministry. It's the finished work of Christ and the power of his Spirit that is able to guide us and carry us home.